Good morning, Mr. Adams here. I'm going to make a few short lessons today to go over a few things that students are struggling with on Odysseyware. This lesson is focused on types of angles and using a protractor to measure an angle. This is specific to a question that students are struggling with on the geometry quiz on Odysseyware. So I'm going to go ahead and share my whiteboard and talk about a few things here that I noticed from the lesson. So the first thing I want to start with is, what is an angle? So an angle starts with two rays that meet at an endpoint. So if I draw it, it looks something like this. We have a ray which has an arrow, which means that would go on forever in one direction. It would end at an endpoint. And then you would have another ray attached to that endpoint. And then what is the actual angle? The angle is the space between this first ray and the second ray. So this space between the two rays, that is the angle. Angles can be measured from 0 degrees up to 360 degrees. But in 5th grade, we're really only talking about angles that are from 0 to 180. So we're really only going to go up to about 180 in 5th grade. Okay, so when we look at the types of angles, there are 3 types of angles. We have an acute angle, which is less than 90 degrees. So essentially that goes from 1 degree up to 89 degrees. Second type of angle is a very specific angle. That's called a right angle. A right angle is exactly 90 degrees. The right angle is probably the easiest type of angle to notice because it looks like an L. So if you put your hand out making an L, that straight up and down corner, like the corner of a square, is your right angle. The third type of angle, and the angle that the question on the quiz was focused on, is an obtuse angle. An obtuse angle is greater than 90 degrees. So in the case in 5th grade, we're talking anywhere from 91 to 179 degrees. By the way, the reason that we end at 179 degrees is because if you drew a 180 degree angle, 180 degree angle would basically be a straight line. So you're not really getting much of an angle with a straight line. Okay, you just kind of have straight across. So 179 degrees is as far as we will go in 5th grade. Okay, so we have an angle made of 2 rays that meet at an endpoint. We can measure our angles from 0 to 180 degrees. We can have 3 types of angles: acute, which is less than 90 degrees, right, which is exactly 90 degrees, and obtuse, which is greater than 90 degrees. Now, getting to the question that they ask on the quiz. On the quiz, they are looking for an obtuse angle measured on a protractor, and they give you 2 rules. Your points cannot be at 0 or 180 degrees. So let's start with what is a protractor. When I look at a protractor, it looks kind of like a half moon shape. Okay, like a semicircle. 0 starts in this corner of the protractor, and 180 is in this corner. And then usually when you look at a protractor, it has a little part cut out in the middle. So like another little semicircle cut out in the middle. And then along the sides, it has markings. Okay? Each one of these markings basically goes up by 10. So in the middle, we get to halfway, which would be 90 degrees. And if you think about it, if I started my angle here and then went up to 90 degrees, I would get that L shape. And then each of these lines goes up by 10. So I've got 10. I'm not going to fill in all of these, but you'll get the point. 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 130, 140. I'll put in a couple over here. 150. 160, 170, and then it gets to 180. Okay, so I have to make an obtuse angle. First thing, I would choose my first point to start. I know my angle, because it's obtuse, has to be greater than 90. So wherever I choose over here, let's just say I choose 10 degrees. Remember, I can't choose 0, I can't choose 180. So if I start at 10, I'm going to change my color here. If I start at 10, well, I can't choose 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, or even 100 for my next point, because my angle will be smaller than 90 degrees. And if you're thinking to yourself, Mr. Adams, how do I know what the angle is? The angle becomes a subtraction problem. If I choose 10 and then I choose 90, then I would go, okay, so my angle goes from 90 to 10. I would make it a subtraction problem. So I would have 90 minus 10. Oops, sorry for that. 90 minus 10, which would be 80. So 90 minus 10, and that would be 80. And if I did 90 minus 10, which is 80, I don't have an obtuse angle, because my obtuse angle would be bigger, or needs to be bigger than 90 degrees. So I would need to pick a bigger number. If I chose 10 and I chose 150, so my first point goes at 10, my second point goes at 150. How would that angle look? It would look something like this. It would just go, one arrow would point to 10. I would meet somewhere in the middle here, and my second arrow would go to 150. What is that measure of that angle? That angle would be 150 minus 10. 150 minus 10 would be 140. That would be an obtuse angle. So you could choose many, many numbers on this protractor, as long as you understand that when you subtract your 2 points, you have to get an answer bigger than 90 degrees. So that one didn't work. This one does work. Okay, now finally, how do I type out my answer? Well, I need to say what 2 points I chose. So I chose 10 degrees and 150 degrees. And then I would tell how much is that angle. That angle is 140 degrees, and then tell why it's obtuse. It is obtuse because it is bigger than 90 degrees. So to sum it up, pick 2 points on your protractor, just not 0 and 180. Make sure that when you subtract them, you get an answer bigger than 90, and then explain it by telling me what you chose, and then what is the angle, and tell me why it's obtuse. I need to see that you understand the definition of obtuse, an angle bigger than 90 degrees. I hope that helps you solve this problem. I will be on with some more recordings soon. Thank you.